Welcome back to SHOT Show 2018 here in the Brownells booth. I'm Steve Ostrem, and with me I have Bill Geissele from Geissele Automatics. Bill, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely, Steve, absolutely. You know, as you well know, Brownells is one of our trusted partners and distributors, and a lot of Geissele products are carried by Brownells, and they actually get a lot of exclusives and first offs. For instance, we have 3 new products this year that you guys are going to have the first ones.
And I hope this relationship has been as beneficial to you as it has to us, because we've sold a jillion of your triggers.
Absolutely. And this year in 2018, we have finally made a trigger for a bolt gun. And a lot of folks have been asking us for that over the years, but we've just been so busy with AR-15s that the bolt gun project, you know, sort of kind of got off the ground. We did some work, but what happened was, a year and a half ago, we were approached by the United States Navy, and they have some sniper rifles. They call them Mark 13, and these are rifles that they build specifically. And these rifles are built up by an armory, and they use a Stiller action. Okay, Stiller is out of Texas. They do very good work, very nice actions these fellows in Texas build. And they use an AI type stock, Accuracy International, and they use their own barrel. And the US Navy produces a barrel for this, and this sniper rifle is chambered in 300 Winchester Magnum.
Plenty of firepower.
Exactly. Problem was, their trigger wasn't holding up in this. And in order to get a military grade trigger, it's a little bit different than what most civilians usually have available.
What goes on there with the military aspect?
Well, these guys, you know, they drive around in a pickup truck out in the desert. They're getting dirt in their rifles, okay, and the trigger has to work. The other issue is that it can't ever go out of adjustment. And a lot of triggers are adjustable, all right? And if it's not done exactly well, there could be problems, all right? And these guys who go out, and they go out in the field and they're out fighting for us, you know, sometimes they can't clean their weapons that well, and they're not using like the gun cleaning solvents that you have at your gun bench. You know, they might need to get MEK, methyl ethyl ketone, or acetone from the local bazaar in some, you know, place out in the middle of Afghanistan and clean their weapons. And when you have an adjustable bolt gun trigger, a lot of times adjustments have some sort of a Loctite or glue.
Correct.
And these chemicals that finally wind their way into cleaning the gun, they eat it up. And next thing you know, the trigger goes south. They couldn't have that. So we developed a trigger for them on a rush basis. We call it the Mark 13. And it's named after this rifle that the Navy builds, the Mark 13. This trigger has a beautiful 2-stage pull, completely non-adjustable, but the big thing is, these Navy guns have to pass a rigorous military drop test, because for one thing, they're on a ship a lot of times, all right? And these ships have metal decks. So the US Navy drops these from 5 feet onto concrete with a metal plate, a 1-inch metal plate on. That's what they drop these guns on. Now, one of the things that they told me, they said, Bill, make sure that your safety has a real positive detent in it, okay? And that's because when we do the drop test, a lot of triggers, a lot of bolt gun triggers, the safety will come off. And we don't want that. Then you won't pass the drop test because the gun will go bang. And I said, wait a second. I said, why do you care about that? I mean, you have the safety off, right? They're like, no. They're like, safety's on. There's not a good trigger out there that'll pass the drop test with the safety off.
Didn't know that.
I didn't know it either, but and if you think about it, that's the case. True. So they drop it with the safety on. But in the case of the Mark 13, my teammates back in our factory in North Wales, Pennsylvania, knocked it out of the park, and this trigger was the very first one to pass the US Navy drop test from 5 feet onto a 1-inch thick steel plate backed up by concrete with the safety off. Very first one. This trigger is military grade. It's designed for guys who are out in the field, getting dirt in their guns, okay, riding along in a pickup truck, getting dirt in it, not able to clean it all the time. This trigger is the real deal, and we're under contract with US Navy to supply these.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yep.
That's going to be great for them.
But the problem is this. This Stiller action is loosely based on the Remington 700. And the Stiller guys did a great job in machining the trigger well where the trigger goes. But the issue is, the Remington 700, they use a different type of cutter to cut the well for the trigger. They use a Woodruff P cutter, which is a big circular cutter, and it comes up there, and it makes a circular shape.
And it leaves an arc.
And it leaves an arc. And our Mark 13 trigger, the way it's designed, will not fit in a regular Remington 700. All right.
Okay.
So what we did is we took our Mark 13 architecture, modified it, did a lot of different work on it, and in this case, we built what's called the Super 700. Super 700. I call it the smile maker, and there's a reason for that. Okay, you're smiling right now.
I'm waiting.
All right.
I'm waiting.
This trigger is drop into the Remington 700 chassis. Any, including the Mark 13 or any Stiller action or any action that'll take a Remington 700 trigger, this trigger's drop in. You pull out your stock one, you put this guy in, and away you go. We have two versions, a single stage and a two stage.
Wow.
They're identical. The only difference is we set them up the factory as single stage or two stage, because a lot of our customers, they don't want to adjust it, they just want to put it in.
Exactly.
But this trigger can be converted from single stage to two stage. So if you buy the single stage and you're like, you know what, I want to try this two stage, there are external adjustments where you convert it into a single stage.
Wow.
And the single stage could go to a two stage. So you can have it. And I know there's a lot of bulk guns guys out there, listen to me, thinking, Bill, I don't like two stages, I want a single stage, there's reasons for it, et cetera, et cetera. Look, Steve, you know that when you get a military firearm in your hand, like a 30-40 Craig, or a P-17, or a Springfield rifle, or an M1 Garand, all right, or an M1A, what's the thing that these guns have in them?
Double stage trigger.
A two-stage trigger, and there's a reason for it. And that's because two-stage trigger have safety, reliability, forgiveness, and performance in one package.
They do.
All right?
They do. They get the job done.
They get the job done. All right? With a single stage, no matter what, you're giving something up. And you see that because the fellows who are considering putting the trigger, a trigger in their gun, other than the stock factory one, there's something lacking. And in order to make that single stage trigger safe and reliable and forgiving, you're giving up on performance. And you've seen that in these triggers that you get in these factory guns. Two stage, you don't have that. All right? You get everything. So I'm trying to convert you to try our two stage trigger. Now, if you want a single stage, that's wonderful. This trigger will do it. And here it is right here.
Let's take a look.
All right. Now you can't see the whole trigger right here. You can only see the bow. All right. You see a little bit of gold, coppery gold in there. All right. That's the trigger right there. This trigger is machined from a solid block of aluminum copper alloy. We did that for several reasons. One, it's high strength. Two, it's corrosion resistance. Three, it's stability. There are very many intricate things in this housing, and some aluminums can move during the machining process. And this aluminum, when you machine it, this specific alloy, does a wonderful job. It's used in instruments, precision instruments per se.
Okay.
Does a wonderful job. Inside the trigger, there is a sear mechanism. This sear mechanism, every part on it is coated with the Geissele nano weapon coating.
Nice.
This is a family of coatings, hard lube coatings. First ones were developed by Picatinny Arsenal, Picatinny DSL, durable solid lubricant. Every part in there has this nano weapon coating on there, so there can never be rust, and there's infinitesimal wear over many, many, many tens of thousands of rounds. That's what's inside this guy. So nothing will ever rust. So if you're a guy and you live in Louisiana and you got a basement, not that they have basements in Louisiana, but if you got a nice humid basement, you put your hunting rifle away, all right, you're gonna pull that out and your trigger's still gonna work. Now, the other thing that this trigger has, it has a triple redundant safety. What does that mean? Some triggers out there on bolt guns, all right, there can be issues on the safety side of things. If you're a military sniper, you're taught that's your safety, all right? You're not using that safety if you're a military sniper. This is your safety right here, your bolt. That's what you raise up, because that is the most positive way to eliminate some traditional issues that have been found in some of these triggers. Our Geissele triple redundant safety blocks the trigger, the internal mechanism, and the transfer bar. The transfer bar is the one lever that drops out of the way when the striker goes forward. It blocks everything. This means that in some triggers out there, you can put the trigger on safe, pull it, okay? The trigger will move, all right? And If there are issues with lubricants getting gummed up, dirt in your trigger, things like that, you could pop your safety off and the gun will go bang. That can happen. All right.
I've had guns brought in like that.
Yeah, it happens. And one of the reasons is the way when you clean your gun, you're pulling the bolt out, okay? You're pulling the bolt out of your gun, and you're taking a patch, and sometimes it has gun lubricants on it, cleaning solvents, and those things drip down into the trigger,
right,
and they get into the trigger, and over time, they can gum up and turn into gum. Next thing you know, your trigger's gummy. You might not notice it until it's a nice cold hunting day where you grab your gun and all of a sudden it doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right. I went on safari here year before last, and I had a Remington 700 and 308 that I had an aftermarket trigger in that took me a day to set up properly. Okay, this is going back 2000 when I bought this trigger. And I had my gun put away. It's my deer hunting gun from PA. And I pulled this gun out, and lo and behold, my trigger didn't work. Oh, so what do I do? You know, I'm running a business. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get things done before I'm going to leave for 2 weeks. And it's, do I have the time to pull my gun apart, change the zero on it, pull this trigger out, check it out, clean it, make sure all the springs are there, ready to go, okay? And I said, I can't. So I bought a new gun. And that's not smart when you're going away on the long hunting trip overseas. You want to have some time on your hunting gun. This trigger right here is resistant to those things because, one, it's got a very small opening for the transfer bar lever. That one lever that comes down, it is not very open, so your lubricants and your cleaning solvents don't have a chance to get in there. Very limited.
Excellent.
The nano weapon coating rejects gum, all right? It doesn't stick to it. And the triple redundant safety always moves everything back. You notice I'm pulling this trigger and it doesn't move. It moves everything back into place so nothing can stay out of place. It's one of the features of this. The other feature, you'll notice the shape of that bow. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of weird looking. Now, that was a big collaboration with my teammates because they didn't like the original design. When you put your finger on some of these trigger bows, your finger can rub on the stock,
Yes, it can.
and that will destroy accuracy. This type of trigger bow keeps your finger off the stock. All right? So what we have is they're going to come from our factory set up at 2.5 pounds, whether it's a single stage or two stage.
Okay.
On the two stage, you're going to have approximately a 2 3/4 pound first stage, and your break is going to be a beautiful 12 ounces. And just right here, you can see that. There's your slack. All right, so you can prep your shot. Going back and forth, you can let it go. And when you want it to go, it is just a beautiful, crispest pull right there. It's going to put a smile on your
Smile
face.
maker.
That's why I call it the smile maker.
Uh-huh.
Now, one other thing. Oh, let me get my mic. Oh,
Let me hold this.
yep, okay. One other thing you see on some two-stage triggers for bolt guns is they're not real two stages. The first stage is basically you're working against a spring. It's a
Right.
fake two-stage.
Right.
This trigger has a generous overlap of the sears. It's like this. And you decrease that overlap till you get to the second stage, and it hangs just on a couple thousandths of an inch. That's what gives you your crisp break. And if you don't want to take your shot, it goes right back to a generous overlap. So when you're walking around out in the field, and you know, there are times when your muzzle will cover people inadvertently, even though you try to, even though it's not necessarily you or your family, it could be your hunting buddies or who's ever out there. You have a generous sear overlap on that two-stage trigger.
And that's why it passes the drop test.
And that's one reason why it passes the drop
Yeah.
test. Now, for the single stage, it's going to come in at a 2.5 pound, beautifully crisp single stage. It's a great trigger for that. Police officers love single stage
Sure
triggers
they do.
because they get command fire. A lot of them tell me that, where 3 or 4 of them will come in on a target and through their headphones they get a command to fire and then all fire at once. They don't like two-stage triggers for that reason. So we have this single stage trigger, this trigger that's going to be perfect. So Brownells will have the first ones, fellas.
Excellent.
Just place your pre-order at Brownells and you'll get these guys. They're going to be coming in about 6 weeks. Geissele Super 700 trigger.
Nice. Very nice, Bill. I'm looking at that shoe. I see what you mean. And the bolt release is right where you expect it.
It's right
where
there.
it's always been.
Yep.
So anybody that's ever shot a 700, this will be nothing new for you other than the performance.
Now, the other new product that we have is we have our SSP trigger, Super Speed Precision. Just been working on this for 2 years. I might even have mentioned it last year when I sat down with you, Steve. Now, here's our thing. At Geissele, we have a testing laboratory. And what we do is we can run gun mechanisms at very high rates of speed. Speeds at full auto fire, 600 rounds a minute. And we can put time on our triggers and hammers in semi-automatic weapons. Simulate full auto fire, simulate long-term semi-automatic fire. I have 2 testers. One is completely electromechanical, and the other one is strictly mechanical. And this mechanical tester will put 10,000 strikes, 10,000 trigger pulls, 10,000 bolt carrier reciprocations in 3 hours. So I test sear geometry, I test heat treatment of our parts. It's used as a QA mechanism, different types of surface treatments, things like that. When we developed the SSP, we put that trigger literally through millions of cycles, different ones, to make sure that this design was correct. In the end, after many tens of thousands of rounds on our first generation SSP, the trigger pull was not up to Geissele standards. So over this last year, we have completely re-engineered the trigger, and we have our first single stage, true single stage trigger for the AR-15.
Wow.
Comes in at 3.5 pounds. It's got a very nice crisp pull, all right?
Nice.
One of the main things with it on a lot of these single stage triggers out there, if you start pulling the trigger and you want to stop your shot, the trigger doesn't go back to 0.
Right.
This one will.
Correct. Really?
Yep. And the other thing is, it's not a cartridge trigger. You'll notice that all Geissele triggers, Steve, if you've ever noticed, they don't come in that little box,
Nope.
right?
Nope, they do not.
Now look, I get it that that box serves a purpose, all right? It gives the impression and the perception to the guy who's working on his AR-15 that that trigger is easy to install. But there's some problems with that box. That box now decreases the available space in the receiver.
It does.
And because of that, a lot of these cartridge triggers have compromised hammer springs. And what I mean by that is the hammer spring is light. It doesn't have the same torque movement on it as the standard M16, M4, standard AR-15 spring from reputable mil-spec manufacturers.
Right. That also makes it tougher to use in a 308.
Exactly. In 308 guns, you'll see some manufacturers that have 308 type triggers.
Yep.
Well, guys, your triggers work in anything. You can put that sucker in a 50 cal and it'll light that primer off in a heartbeat. So our open architecture of our triggers, you don't get a compromised hammer spring. It will eat any kind of dirt. If you put a suppressor on your gun and it's throwing stuff back into that trigger, Geissele triggers will keep running and running and running and running and will not stop. Cartridge trigger traps that dirt. And a compromised hammer spring gives you longer lock time, decreased primer ignition performance, makes your gun less accurate. In Bill Geissele's opinion, if you're going to put a trigger with a compromised hammer spring in your rifle, you might as well take the muzzle of your gun and take a ball peen hammer and smash it all to bits, because that's what you're doing to your gun. You're making it less accurate. That's why Geissele triggers, you're smiling, all right?
Smiling,
That's why
yep.
Geissele triggers have the open architecture, because our triggers go into military weapons, and these guns have to work. They have to work when they get dirty. Every Geissele trigger is easy to install because it comes with a slave pin that makes pushing in your trigger pin easy as pie.
Yep.
You can go online, and I know there's videos on Brownells
There are.
showing
Yes,
how
indeed.
easy Geissele triggers
Yep,
are
they're
installed.
Not bad at all. Believe
Not
me.
bad at all. And look, part of the great fun of working with the AR-15 specifically is that all guys are able to work on their gun.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Look, I started out as a machinist when I was 15 years old. I started working on motorcycles when I was a young guy. When I was a young guy, the only thing I cared about was making my motorcycle go faster.
That's
That was
right.
it, and girls.
Yep.
It's the only two things I cared about. All right? Then I started going to community college, and I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And you know, I got a real job instead of working on motorcycles. I worked in the mining industry. I worked in the railway industry. I've worked with mechanical things my whole life. All right? To me, working on the gun is second nature. But there's a lot of guys out there, you know, they don't work on mechanical things. Whatever they do all right, to feed their family, whatever noble profession they're in, they might not work with these small little mechanisms.
That's right.
All right, if you're a bricklayer, you're not working with tiny little pins and
Nope.
things like that.
Nope.
All right.
Whole different world.
Yeah. If you're an accountant or an actuary, you're not dealing with grease and oil and different things like that. You're not making chips. What Geissele has done, all right, and the beauty of the AR-15 is you're able to do this on your own, enter into a profession that you've never done before, and gain confidence and have a great time putting your own gun together.
Right, because all the hard work's really been done.
It's all been done.
It's in the
all right?
design.
It's all been done. Years ago, you had to take your gun to a gunsmith.
Yes.
All right. You had a wooden stock. You wanted to put a scope on it, you couldn't put a scope on it. You had to get somebody to drill it, all right, and mount your scope and do things like that. And there's fewer and fewer gunsmiths out there, and the ones that are there, a lot of times, you know, they do good work, and there is a wait time.
There's a long wait time for a good gunsmith.
Yep.
now.
And now, with the products for the AR-15 that are out there, you could do this on your own, and it's a great, great fun. Now, I will say this, quote unquote, Geissele always recommends installation by a certified gunsmith. All right, I said it. But a lot of people do this on their own.
A lot of our customers do it on
Exactly. It's great, great fun. Now, let me show you something here. This is what you want when you want to work on your own gun. This catalog right here, number 70 from Brownells. This catalog is an icon in the firearms industry. It has its own, I believe it's a trademark shape, is it not? All right. This is own trademark horizontal shape right here. Everything in here that you need for your firearm is sold by Brownells with, if you notice these paragraphs, a small description. The Brownells specialists distill all this technical knowledge into about 6 or 7 sentences so you can read about all these different things in here, all right? This used to be only for professional gunsmiths, but people buy this and they can read everything about everything from cleaning rods and cleaning solvents, all right? The pistol bullets, the rifle bullets, the reloading equipment, to things that you can work on your trigger on your 45 on. It's right here in this catalog. Not only is this catalog here so that you can purchase these things, but it's here for you to learn.
Hey, thanks for the plug.
And you know what?
Appreciate it.
When I was a young guy, I just used to sit down at night, put my feet up in front of the fire, and I used to read the Brownells catalog.
I did too, back before I worked here. Now I just read it all day long while I'm talking on the phone to people.
Exactly. It's a wealth of knowledge. So I would encourage you to get a Brownells catalog, which you can get for free from Brownells.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Now, let me show you something else.
I'm hoping you will.
This right here is the Sopmod Block 3. Now, they don't call it Sopmod Block 3. They call it the URGI, U-R-G-I, Upper Receiver Group Improved. Right here is a Geissele Mark 16 rail on this AR-15. The Mark 16 was developed in conjunction with the U.S. Army Special Operations. We made a rail to their exact specifications for their improved M4. So what they're doing, Steve, is they're not buying the upper, they're buying a kit. This kit comes to them with a Daniel Defense 14.5-inch mid-length gas system, first mid-length gas system in the U.S. military. Comes with a low-profile gas block, the gas tube already installed, and the Geissele barrel nut installed on that barrel.
Okay,
The,
nice.
the low-profile gas block is pinned to the barrel, combat-proof, and the rail comes separate. So what the armorer does is he uses the Geissele reaction rod to remove his existing barrel and front sight. He tosses it, and he's left with his upper receiver. He puts the Geissele barrel cartridge on, spins our 2.25-inch long barrel nut on.
Yep.
All right, and he tightens it with a torque wrench. Click. This takes approximately 1.5 minutes. And then he takes our rail and he slides it on with our precision machine fit.
It is
on
a
our
good fit. It's
barrel
great.
nut to the rail. Steve, you know that fit.
Yep.
It is not loose. It is not clunky. It becomes completely aligned with the barrel, and then he tightens up these 2 screws right here. Now, this whole process takes maybe 5 minutes if the guy's drinking a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
there's not much to it.
Not much to it at all. But what happens is now the U.S. Army is able to retrofit their M4s with this special rail, and let me show you what's special about it. One, there was tremendous influence from the users on the profile of this rail. All right, there's a lot of young soldiers out there. They're shooting 3-gun, okay, and they don't want a big clunky quad rail on there. They want to be able to hold this. They want to be able to hold that, get their thumb around it, and have a comfortable rail. And this profile was developed with their influence. This rail also has M-lock. It's a very good attachment system, Brownells.
Very strong.
Very strong. This is on all quadrants. Every quadrant, including on the 45s, on the top and on the bottom, are all M-lock. So this way, they could take things like QD mount adapters, lights, lasers, and they have complete flexibility about where these things go. The length of this rail, 13.5 inches long. Just long enough to get a suppressor on here. You'll notice on the Picatinny right here, there's no laser markings.
Right.
They wanted no laser markings so that this is subdued. So what we do is we engrave the rail marks on the aluminum itself. Hardware T30, Torx number 30. The bolts are made from 17-4 pH, nitrided for hardness and corrosion resistance. They're captive in here, Steve. So when the soldier pulls this off, these bolts don't fall out.
He's not going to lose his screws.
You pull them out and they stay there. On the other side, Geissele's exclusive dog bone nut. This alloy steel nut, this is what the threads of the bolts go into. So in case a soldier or Marine gets a little crazy and tightens things up and maybe strips something, you just pop that guy out of there, and that nut's captive also, and you put new bolts and a new nut in, and away you go.
Very nice. Very nice.
You also notice that it has 2 methods of anti-rotation resistance right here. And this is all mated to our new crankshafted bolt barrel nut. This rail is exactly what the Army ordered. Geissele's providing this, and soon, Steve, we're going to be providing Brownells with a complete upper receiver.
Have I got a set screw here?
That's right.
What does that do?
Very small set screw locks the rail to the receiver so there can be absolutely no movement at all.
That thing cannot rotate at all.
Exactly. And you need that because you can't change the receiver. This is going on the existing guns.
Yep.
If the receiver could be changed, something would be different. But on these military guns, it can't be, and that locks everything right in place.
So in a couple of minutes, you can put a world-class system on there easily.
Exactly.
Easily.
And Geissele is going to be providing these upper receivers. We're going to have a M4 upper receiver with a mil spec from a Tier 1 military specification manufacturer, bolt carrier group. It's going to be Carpenter 158 on the bolt. All of them are going to be high pressure tested, magnetic particle tested, 8620 bolt carrier. We're going to have the Daniel Defense barrel on here that comes right from Daniel Defense.
Those are good barrels.
We're going to have a special Geissele stainless steel nitrided gas block compact. This is a little bit different than what we have.
Okay.
Because we wanted to have enough clearance inside this because it's a very slim rail. That's going to be pinned to the barrel, and on the end is going to be a surefire 3-prong muzzle brake, just like the guys use, except for one difference. All right. Now remember, this isn't a 16-inch barrel; it's 14.5 inch. We pin and weld the muzzle brake.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay.
Got to.
So this way, you can put this upper on your AR-15, and it's not an SBR. It's not a short-barreled rifle. You're going to be able to purchase the real deal. This is exactly what the guys are running in the field. All the Green Berets that go all around the world in all these trouble spots, you're going to be able to purchase this from Brownells. They're going to have the first ones. The Geissele upper receiver group improved.
That is a really slick system. I really like that. I imagine my next build will be pretty close to that.
There you go. There you go. So guys, I want to thank you here for giving me the time to show you some of our products that Brownells are going to be carrying. And like always, you can find everything you need for your weapon system at Brownells. Give them a call if you don't have one of these catalogs, and the nice folks at Brownells will send one out free of charge.
Bill, thanks a million for coming back.
Absolutely, Steve.
Always a pleasure.
Anytime.
Maybe we'll do this again next year.
God willing.
And come on over to Iowa and visit when you get a chance.
I will. I hear there's good hunting out there.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Steve.
And thank you for watching SHOT Show 2018. This is Steve signing off at the Brownells booth. Thanks again.